Hi, and welcome to SCW here on YouTube.com. Thank you for choosing the channel and choosing the video. Please subscribe right now. Leave in the comments in the comment section. Please like and share the video as well. Lots of discussion today. It is WrestleMania Backlash in the books. Some big talking points coming out the show. Rhea Ripley joining Judgment Day. The Group Edges stable, of course. We've got a brand new SmackDown Women's Champion in Ronda Rousey winning the I Quit match. And could we potentially have a direction already of long-term booking from WWE with Money in the Bank? Lots to discuss on this particular podcast. Thank you for everyone that's been checking it out. And of course, I'm not alone. Joining me today is none other than NXSteve, the one and only. How are you doing?
I'm very good, Steve. Thank you for having me on once again. It is always a pleasure to be on your channel.
It's a pleasure to have you here as well. And really looking forward to diving into this. A big show, of course. And we've already got a chat coming from Jones. He says, good evening, lads. Great to see the Dream Team back together. Hope you're both well. We are indeed. And we look forward to hearing your takes as well on WrestleMania Backlash. So do feel free to join in on the comments below. But Steve, let's start. Before we dive into the show chronologically, what were some of your highlights from this show? And did you enjoy it overall?
To be fair, I enjoyed a lot of the show. Like, there's not a lot I didn't like about it, to be fair.
Yeah.
No match on the kickoff show, so I didn't have to watch the kickoff show. The pacing, the timing, it was just under 3 hours. I thought it was great. I thoroughly enjoyed this. This is exactly like Backlash last year, which I thoroughly loved as well. And for the hype that was going into this pay-per-view, where a lot of people were like, it's not going to be worth watching, this could turn out to be one of their top pay-per-views for the year again, just like Backlash last year.
Absolutely, yeah, I have to agree with you. And like you said, that I think one of the key parts there, or two key parts, no kickoff match, so you can breeze it and not even have to tune in if you don't want to. And then when it comes to the main show, it said 3 hours. Then obviously, if you are not watching it live the next day, you take out the Bobby Lashley advert, you take out the Bianca Belair and Drew McIntyre advert. You can skip some of the video packages if you want. This knocks it down to about 220 or so. It's a much more
Probably less than that, yeah.
Yeah, it's a much more digestible show. And I must say that I think WWE should do this going forward. A lot of people left off the pay-per-view or premium live event, I should say. But I think that's the difference. I'm getting into premium live events because pay-per-views, you had 4 hours, you had 2-hour kickoffs, you had all sorts going on. You had to cluster everything into this quick time as well. Quick matches. It just, for me, was too heavy. So for me, looking at this, 6 matches, everything had time to breathe. Yes, some of the entrances on this show perhaps are quite long, but all in all, I think that it's much more digestible.
Roman Reigns with his 7-minute intro still didn't affect the pace of this show. It was still the crowd. I think the crowd thoroughly enjoyed it being this short as well because they were hot all night as well. This was so a very well delivered premium live event, and I hope that a lot of the smaller ones, like through the year, like Hell in a Cell and all that, will be this kind of pace and stuff like that. And maybe just focus on like the big 5, obviously the top 4, and then Money in the Bank. Maybe pull out all the stops for them 5. But no, so I thoroughly enjoyed this.
Absolutely, I thoroughly enjoyed it as well, and definitely that could be a sign of things to come going forward. Certainly, indeed. There, Jonesy goes on to say that I think the show for a 2022 WWE show was so great. Even the Charlotte versus Ronda match was incredible. Even Omos and Lashley was done quick. So yeah, that's Jonesy's take on the show for you there. And I tell you what, that's not wasting any time then for those that are watching. Let's dive in then at chronological order. We can go in with other details as we go through the show. So the first match that we will be discussing, of course, that opened the show was none other than the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes taking on Seth Freakin Rollins. Now, obviously, this was a rematch from WrestleMania. And of course, the difference with this match compared to the first one, there was no surprise here. Seth Rollins knew what was coming, and that played nicely into the story of the match because Seth had done his scouting, had sort of, managed to get one up. So lots of counter wrestling going on in this match, particularly that early point where Cody went onto the second rope and he was sort of pushed over the top rope rather than getting that disaster kick that was hit in. There were some lovely, beautiful spots as well through the match. Obviously, the one that really stands out to me was the superplex Falcon Arrow spot that was turning into the crossroads. Thought that was really, really cool. There was just some really great magical moments from this match. What were your thoughts?
Even the little details with this match, like the fact that Seth came out in his WrestleMania gear, I thought was a beautiful touch. Like, he has this habit of playing these simple mind games, and even say coming out in his WrestleMania attire, it was almost as if like WrestleMania had never happened for Seth. And I thought, it's such an awesome little touch that Seth Rollins adds to these things. But this match, I struggled to pick between this and the Charlotte Ronda match for match of the night for me. But this was beautiful wrestling. This was well told story. Even the role, even the victory, the way Cody Rhodes won the match as well, I thought was really good. And I know a lot of people were not a fan of roll up pins and all that stuff, but the fact that you had to slightly cheat to win, I just thought was brilliant. I thought it was an excellent story.
Absolutely, indeed. As just to say, just to go through towards that finish, and obviously, we've gone through counters of pedigrees, had pedigrees in. Obviously, we got to that point of the desperation of Seth trying to go for that Phoenix splash, and obviously, then Seth feels he needs to cheat to win, tries to pull the tights on that sort of reverse roll up, but of course, Cody one-upped him, and like you say, he was the one that helped the tights to pick up the victory. Yeah, not the cleanest of finishes, but some people suggested is Cody on a heel run here. I think just simply he got one up on Seth. That's just simply what it was. Seth was the one that was desperate. Cody went, well, hang on, two can play that game, and I'm going to play it better. And I think that's pretty much what the story was from that. But looking at it as well there with that, do you reckon that could lead to another rematch going forward at Hell in a Cell?
For me, I think this actually plays into the longer story for Mania next year. I've depending on what happens with when we talk about Money in the Bank and stuff later. I think that with Cody being 2-0 up over Seth, and I reckon, like, I'll spill what I think is a potential good storyline. Is Seth wins Money in the Bank.
Nice.
Cody gets a shot at the WWE Championship. Seth cashes in the Money in the Bank during that match. During that match. So Seth then picks up the WWE Championship. Cody then goes on to the Rumble to win the Rumble, and then goes on to face Seth at Mania next year, where he wins the title. That's what I'd personally like to see. I know there's there's a lot of like foretelling what's going to happen. So like you can tell that Cody will win the Rumble, and then Cody's going to win at Mania next year. But I just think that's how, from a Seth point of view, I think that's the kind of mind game I'd like to see Seth play, where Cody thinks he's so close to winning that championship, and Seth just steals it away from him to get revenge for these two losses.
Joe, I absolutely love that booking. That's really creative. If WWE was going to, because the thing is as well, that plays so well. We're going to talk, of course, a lot more about Money in the Bank later on, but obviously the idea of how that could be brought in with that advert that was mentioned later in the evening with with Cody Rhodes, about one female superstar could be in the main event of WrestleMania. No one said they're necessarily going to cash in at WrestleMania. It's just the fact that they would be a part of it. So that would be a creative way in doing so, because if Seth was the champion and Cody gets that ultimate revenge, you get that ultimate rubber match. I think that's pure genius, and I love it. And especially as well with those little touches of the storyline as well. There is an interview that was done with Cody after the Premium Live event, and he said that this was something that was taken from the book of his father, Dusty Rhodes. Of course, Seth had actually, actually downplayed Dusty, didn't he, on the Raw on those leading up to show, and obviously went for sort of like the Dusty moves to the Barnack elbow as well as he went to that closing finishing sequence. So a bit of a tribute to Dusty there to close off that match. So I think all in all, this ticked a lot of boxes, and I'm going to go out and say here, I do believe that this was better than their WrestleMania match, and if they do this one more time, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I think where a lot of people will have the difference telling them apart is obviously that even though it was the worst kept secret in wrestling, it's still the shock factor that Cody would return at WrestleMania. But yeah, I think this was a much better wrestling match in general overall. And like I said, the fact that Cody's won, it just leaves the possibility that there should be a third one. There should be a point where Seth gets his revenge, and this leads on to an even bigger event at WrestleMania, for instance, on one of the bigger 4 pay-per-views.
Do you think that Seth, because obviously he's not had all the full marbles as of late, do you reckon that he could be a bit off the rails tonight on Raw?
I hope that they do something with it. I don't want them to just. I know that obviously in Cody's post match interview, he was like, "That's it, I'm done with Seth now." I don't want them to just like completely ignore the fact that Seth's lost 2 matches and like he just goes on his way. I would like this story to sort of still carry on into Money in the Bank, because I think once you have Money in the Bank play out, and like I said, if it played out my way and you had Cody and Seth in the Money in the Bank ladder match, Seth winning it, you could then split these two apart to then come back to a later date, i.e. when Cody gets a shot at the WWE Championship, and then you can bring this story back to life again with Seth cashing in on Cody.
Absolutely. I think it's a fantastic storyline, by the way. I really do love the idea that you presented there. I still think this will go into Hell in a Cell, because I think Cody being that big deal, that big return, seems to be getting a lot of the big marquee matches. And I think Hell in a Cell as a structure itself, I think could be quite fitting for Cody. And it's obviously a few that if they wanted to do another match out of it in the short term, and then even still do what you say there, because there would be a big break for them two from there and WrestleMania if they wanted to do that.
Yeah.
I think that Hell in a Cell still could be a possibility. So I wouldn't be surprised if this was to continue. But let's see what the chat has got to say. Noob and Co in the house. Hope you're doing well, Noob. Thank you for checking out the stream. It's good afternoon. I believe Backlash is better than last year's Backlash. Well, I mean, obviously, we perhaps maybe can make a comparison there. I mean, obviously, last year both have been very good shows, but the thing that this show had that last year's didn't have was the big Damian Priest Miz zombie spot. So I think from that alone, this probably takes it from that.
But you remember it, and that's the important part. Whereas you won't remember the Corbin Madcap Moss match from this year, which is why last year's was good for me, because even though it was a silly gimmick for a promotion for a film, it was still entertaining, and you'll still remember it because it was really cheesy and really bad.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, we'll have to wait and see. I tell you what, in a year's time from now, when we do WrestleMania Backlash again, there's a lot of WrestleMania Backlashes we're going to be comparing. Noob, we'll make this a reoccurring theme for you every single year if you want. Let us know in the chat. Jonesy says that I think this match was excellent with Seth and Cody. Was excellent. Looks like a feud ender based on that finish. So there you go. Perhaps it could be an ender. Maybe we won't go to Hell in a Cell. And be interested to see where it would go next with those, if that would be the case. Who would you see that if it wasn't Seth Freakin Rollins again? Would it be like Kevin Owens next?
I don't know. It depends on what Kevin Owens is obviously doing with this whole Ezekiel storyline. It depends. I can't really think of anyone off the top of my head. I'd like to see a Cody Rhodes, Kevin Owens story. I mean, there is obviously that slight connection from Raw a couple of weeks ago where those two fought each other. Yeah. But I'm just trying to think who else is sort of like a big heel on the Raw side for Cody to come up against. And not at the minute, nothing pops to my head.
Well, hopefully they'll keep him away from Omos. That's definitely one. We're going to talk about Omos in a couple of seconds, but we've got two more things just to quickly mention here in the chat. 3 chats just come in actually as well, just before we move on to our next match. Martin saying good evening to you both. WrestleMania Backlash was an enjoyable show, especially there is less matches and more time for them. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a big, strong point for that. And Jonesy's got a suggestion for a Cody match in a minute. But he says, last year we had zombies. This year we had the real Rhea Ripley. I'm so much happier this year. So Jonesy gives a column for this year at this particular moment. Noob, you've started something we could get as a recurring theme all the way through.
Jonesy's comparing the wrong segments because you can't compare Rhea Ripley to zombies. You have to compare zombies to Madcap Moss and Happy Corbin because they are like in a polite way, they are the worst two parts of each pay-per-view.
Yeah, fair play to you. Martin says, what if Seth self-doubts himself about not being able to win and it be like the Architect days and KO comes out and just destroys Seth? Now, that's an interesting direction they could go with the story because, of course, the KO and Seth thing does need to reconnect somewhere where it's friends or enemies down path. And would you be interested in seeing a Seth babyface turn at some point in this year? Because obviously he's a dastardly heel, but people do seem to like his shtick.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, though, like I said, with the way I booked it, I would prefer Seth to stay heel. Yes. Just because if they are going to reinvent it, I wouldn't see him putting Cody as the heel dynamic for this rivalry. If it's short, then again, I wouldn't really want him to do it on a short-term basis either. I think if they're going to turn him face, then he should just go face all the way and not be like face for 3 months and then all of a sudden turn back heel again.
It's not the big show, is he? Let's be fair. So,
yeah, exactly.
Totally with you on that. But here's Jones's suggestion. Edge versus Cody later this year has to happen. Edge can bring in Dusty Rhodes insults. I'm sure he would. I'm sure many will bring in Dusty Rhodes insults throughout the year. But Cody against Judgment Day, I think could be quite fun. Of course, Edge now will probably have a full-on stable by that point. So many players that could come into that. So it'd be really fascinating. I'll be quite down for that.
Yeah, that's actually like depending on where this whole Judgment Day faction's going and the size it may potentially grow to. So they're going to need numbers on the opposite side to go up against them. So yeah, I'd love to see Cody Rhodes versus Edge.
Yeah, it would be fascinating to see indeed. And Joe says, Madcap Moss for WWE champion. WWE, make it happen. Elbow cough, elbow cough. Yeah, we're down with that. To be fair, we'll be talking more about Madcap very, very shortly. But first, we mentioned Omos's name. And of course, Omos picked up a big victory on this show, defeating Bobby Lashley. Of course, MVP was help during this match. And I'm going to be honest, I've been always a little bit critical of Omos. And I'm not trying to be unfair. I don't think that he's ready for the spot and position he's been given. But I will say that I think this was his best performance in the WWE ring. I'm going to go that far. This match isn't spectacular by any means of the imagination. Bobby Lashley, I think, done very well to help carry the match and make a good match out of it. And of course, now it's shown the purpose of having MVP as well. MVP playing a big part at the end of this match, of course, hitting Bobby Lashley with the cane. And of course, I should say almost the Nigerian giant going forward as well, using the sort of like pickup, two-hand pickup sort of chokeslam move that's used by every giant.
Yeah.
Exactly. Every giant uses it in WWE. So for the pinfall victory. But what are your thoughts of this match?
Yeah, it's like you said, it's exactly what it needed to be. Bobby's done the right thing in putting Omos over. The whole segment where he got Omos into the hurt lock, and the way he managed to get out of it, it was a perfect way to book Omos, which is what they're trying to do, which is the whole reason why they've got MVP with him. MVP being his mouthpiece, doing the right thing. The heel tactic, where it's the same thing with anyone who's got a heel manager. The heel manager is going to get involved and do stuff like this. Again, the right result for what needed to be for where they want to push Omos to.
Yeah, absolutely, indeed. Then we'll have to wait and see. Do you? I mean, for me, I feel that this story is definitely not finished at this point. I've said before the pay-per-view that I think that eventually we could get a handicap match from this, and this could be a way where Bobby Lashley could still walk away the victor from the feud, perhaps defeating MVP and almost is protected. Do you think that's a direction they could do? That this was more filler to carry on to another month?
To be honest, I think this is probably going to be more of a rematch on Raw tonight, because I think that the way that obviously MVP cheated to get almost the win, this I reckon could be one that'll be on tonight. And like I said, it could very well be a 2-on-1 handicap where Bobby Lashley finally gets his hands on MVP, and then he can wash his hands of the both of them, and they can go on to do their own things. I know there's a draft planned for later on in the year. Yes. Whether they want to push it that far along until they can maybe trade Bobby off over to SmackDown or Omos or whoever, swap sides. But yeah, I can really see this being a sort of a rematch tonight on Raw.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. It doesn't feel done this by a long shot at this particular moment.
No.
And I mean, one other question just before we got a chat from Jonesy come in. With Omos, obviously, he's getting a push here. He's obviously getting great experience. He's obviously been around the likes of AJ Styles, now Bobby Lashley in the program as well. They obviously want big things for this guy going forward, and no pun intended, by the way, there. But can you see him in big high-profile matches in, say, 6 months from now?
Yes, but they need to keep a mouthpiece on him, because this is the whole Cesaro thing again. This is why Cesaro never really got pushed to the top, because he had what Vince felt was poor communication with the WWE universe.
Yeah.
Omos isn't the most fluent, and it probably could take him a while to get a decent promo out. So as long as they keep MVP with him, then yeah, you potentially could see him in a top match, like a top of the card match in 6 months' time.
Absolutely, indeed. And I will say that I think Creative possibly could have done a less lazy name than Nigerian Giant, but hey, they're getting their point over at least.
Because then it's like, what does Apollo Crews do now? Because he's is he not just like the Nigerian prince or something?
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe bring Apollo in to beat MVP up, and then he steals almost away from MVP, and then we have MVP reunite with Bobby, and then we get Apollo Crews and Omos versus MVP and Bobby Lashley. There we go.
I like it. There's some fantasy booking coming out there from NXSteve today. I'm liking it. It's quite fun. Maybe they're just a one big group. Who knows? Maybe that Apollo and Commander Aziz couldn't beat him, so join him. Maybe that could be an idea. Maybe that's the way of the new Hurt business. So Cedric can stop asking every 2 weeks on Raw. But we could go with he's very dedicated though, Cedric. You've got to give him that. But Jonesy says the original plan was for Bobby to get hit in the eye with the cane. I wonder if they get one-eyed Bobby on Raw tonight. Well, that could be the case if they did the rematch and they did it right tonight, and then Bobby's walking around with an eye patch. Obviously, WrestleMania with the pirate ships was a year or two ago now, so they couldn't go down that theme again. Exactly, yeah. But would you be down for a Pirate Bobby storyline?
As long as it ain't as bad as the Rey Mysterio one from a couple of years ago, then yeah, it should be fine.
Yeah, don't do eye for an eye again. Whatever you do, WWE, we do not want that. We've not even got Extreme Rules on the calendar at the minute this year. That's, I mean, to be fair, though, it would be kind of hell in a cell in its own way. I'd feel like the cell would be me having to watch Peacock, but there you go. Also, as well, there we've got Jonas saying the other name that was pitched was the Nigerian Nightmare. Well, I guess the reason they probably didn't go with that is because of the American Nightmare, but that for me would be better, because it's like with Cesaro, we mentioned Cesaro, the Swiss Superman, it rolls off the tongue a lot better.
Yeah.
That would roll off the tongue a lot better. So, I mean, in a way, I kind of would have liked that. But hey, I mean, I think Jones has sent me something just the other week about, Vince not liking people with the same names. And you look at AEW and loads of people are like got the same names, where it's like,
Adam
the John
Cole, Adam
Silver.
Page, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So, it's each to their own, I guess. But hey, it works. It's a job they want to get him over in some way. And if it can catch on with people, then great job, Martin Career says that Omos still feels slow in the ring and needs way more to be an impressive giant. I do agree. I think that he's still too green at this moment, but working with people like Bobby Lashley, if you're not going to improve with working with great world-class talents like that, you're not going to, are you?
Yeah, I mean, once this Bobby story is done, he needs to go on essentially what Gunther is doing on SmackDown, and he needs to have a couple of weeks of just destroying some jobbers in 60 seconds, just to make him as a person and his size more intimidating.
Absolutely, indeed. There, and Martin also says, I don't know if a Giant's still drawing wrestling at this time. Personally, for me, I think they do, because we went through a stage where a lot of the smaller guys were getting towards the top, and then I think there was this moment where Braun Strowman broke out, and obviously then I think it became a bit back the other side, because you've got the likes of Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, these sort of larger-than-life legitimate threats. And remember this time with Omos at WrestleMania 37, he was the most over thing in that tag team match. Everyone was like, whoa, this is awesome. This is a big dude. And, it was really exciting when he got the hot tag. It's the fact that his in-ring skill just isn't up to it yet that I think that a lot of that heat has died off. Do you reckon if he was to the standards of perhaps, say, a Braun Strowman, that Omos right now would already be in the World Championship picture?
Well, if you're looking at this point on the way the roster is right now with Cody coming back, then I don't think so. I just think I think Cody coming back is a bigger deal than booking Omos. But like I said, if it had been a year ago and he was like a Braun Strowman, then it's a possibility. But with Cody coming back, I wouldn't think so.
No. And do Giants draw for you in wrestling at this time?
To be honest with you, aside from Braun Strowman, who only really sort of more towards his later tenure in WWE was I'm becoming more of a fan of. I've never personally been a fan of the Giant like Paul Whitehouse or Big Show, Andre the Giant, Great Khali. I've never been a fan of the big guys, unfortunately. I like your Goldbergs and your Brock Lesnar's and stuff, but the Giants, unfortunately, no, not for me.
No, fair play, fair play. It's each to their own on that one. Do you know what I mean? Like everyone will have a different viewpoint on it. So it's interesting to hear NXSteve's as well. And it'll be interesting to know people's in the chats. What do you reckon? Do Giants still draw? Bull Zone 15 in the house. Hello, lads. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for checking out the stream. We will be moving on to match 3 in the meantime. And this was one of my favorite matches on the show. It was Edge defeating AJ Styles. And of course, Rhea Ripley joining Judgment Day. Now, the thing that I really loved about this match, because again, I think it was better than the WrestleMania encounter. Obviously, the storyline playing into it was one of the stronger storylines going into this match. There was more heat. There was more personal. I mean, of course, it had a personal start, but just how it's flowed on even further. The fact that as well they've linked in with AJ Styles with the shoulder attack over the last few weeks, played that into the story of the match. I love the fact that AJ Styles, with his shoulder hurting, had to adjust his moveset. He couldn't do things like he would normally do.
But that shoulder injury goes back to Edge's debut at the Rumble, because AJ got injured from that spear. So that's great long-term storytelling for that.
Absolutely. And I think just the way they sort of brought that forward here, brought it into the match, and the way it was sort of played into the finish as well, because AJ would normally go for that phenomenal forearm, and he's still not hit it on Edge. And that was the thing of, if he hits it, he's going to beat Edge. But of course, his shoulder was so bad, Nick, he went to the top rope, so to try and hit it off of there. And that's the point when Priest came down. Obviously, Finn Balor comes down as well to attack Damian Priest. For those who are wondering, would Finn Balor be the one to sort of, perhaps he could have knocked Damian Priest out of the picture and then Balor would have turned on Styles. There's no telling that could have happened, but I think that would have been too early, and thankfully it was saved for a later date. But of course, someone that was like, masked up, hooded up as well, taking AJ Styles off of the top rope there, that sort of arm and shoulder again going into the ring rope, and then of course Edge choking out AJ Styles, then that sort of like variation, sort of the shoulders held back into that sleeper hold sort of maneuver as well, to pick up the pass out victory, I suppose. Rather, it's a submission style victory, isn't it? And then we got the reveal afterwards, which of course, as I say there on the screen there, Rhea Ripley joins Judgment Day. She revealed that she was the one there that helped Edge. And for me, all in all, this ticked a lot of great boxes. First up, before we talk about Rhea Ripley and Judgment Day, what were your thoughts with the match?
The match itself, yeah, like it's fantastic storytelling. I like the fact that they used a choke out finish rather than a tap out. I think it does a lot more for the story wise because it keeps AJ strong because he didn't actually get pinned, he didn't tap out, he was choked out, and so he didn't have a say in the matter because he wasn't conscious. So I thought this is really good. I'm hoping this goes all the way to Survivor Series because the way Edge is booking or bringing in this faction with Priest. With Rhea Ripley, rumors going that Ciampa might join as well.
Yeah,
I'm sorry if we can get a intergender Survivor Series style match with Edge, Priest, Rhea Ripley, and Ciampa versus example Finn Balor, AJ Styles, Liv Morgan, and Mustafa Ali. Oh mate, for Survivor Series, I'm game for that, man, 100%. But otherwise, the match itself was absolutely fantastic.
That would be awesome. And just to quickly, obviously, before we touch on Rhea Ripley going in, you mentioned that idea there. Obviously, Liv Morgan actually was posted a picture on social media doing the 2 Sweets yesterday wearing an NWO shirt. So what's to say that this couldn't come earlier in Hell in a Cell, an intergender form of this with, Styles, Balor, and Liv against Edge.
Why
Priest,
not bring back the NWO with AJ, Finn, and Liv and Mustafa Ali? Why not? And they own the property to the NWO. Why not? I think it'd be. Just have a faction war up till Survivor Series. I think this would be great.
We definitely need more factions stuff going on WWE, and I think as well, if you do it on, if you have it more on one show than the other, it can really distinct the brands as well. I think that'd be quite exciting. Obviously, we have the Bloodline on SmackDown, but they kind of go to every show right now anyway because they hold. Well, Roman holds all the gold anyway at this point, so they could do that where it's predominantly a Raw thing, and I think that would be really nice.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that's or even like I say, build this to Survivor Series and then loser leaves Raw kind of thing. So the other 4 have to go over to SmackDown. You could essentially make it part of the draft as well. I think that could work. I forgot to actually mention my one critique for this match was the fact that when Rhea got involved, she's wearing her gear and you can see her logo on her leg, and it was the one tiny thing that spoiled it for me. Don't get me wrong. You only see it for a split second, but you know it's her. But obviously when she's in the ring, she's got her back to the hard cams. So you can't see her. But it was my one tiny critique about this match was the fact that you knew it was her before you knew it was her.
Yeah, I have to agree with that. Like you could see quite clearly, like you said, the bottoms are what she always wears.
Nightmare brutality or something.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if it was just like tracky bottoms, do you know what I mean? Like just like the hoodie was on the top, you would have had no clue of who it would have been, and maybe it would have been like, well, hang on, because once you saw that, it's definitely Rhea. It's definitely Rhea. And then when she revealed, of course, she still popped because it is Rhea. And I suppose as well, like I was talking to Jonesy off air. Well, obviously he's not on air at the moment, but was talking on Facebook earlier, and he said to me the idea of like, well, perhaps they could have left it over to Raw, and I thought that was a good point at the time. Why reveal it so early? But I had to think about this since as well, and probably there's a Sean Ross app in the world that would have probably known already who it was going to be, would have been out on the dirt sheets before it would have got to tonight. So I think WWE probably took the opportunity and went, we're going to do it here and we're going to reveal it now and we'll say and make it a big pop and a real sort of thing to give away on the pay-per-view or premium live event. I've got to get used to saying that. It's still 5 months down the line. I'm still doing it. But still, overall, do you think that it was the right placement to do it here and now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's another one of these sort of worst-kept secrets in wrestling where a lot of people wanted Rhea Ripley to join. You could have had a swerve and have Liv Morgan join, but Rhea Ripley just makes so much sense. I mean, I know Edge is a big fan of Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley, so I imagine that a lot of this faction is his doing, and he's turned around to Vince or whoever and turned and says, I want to make a faction, essentially a new Brood / Ministry of Darkness, and I want Rhea Ripley and I want Damian Priest in it. And Edge, having the pull that he's got, can do stuff like this, and I think it's excellent. And this is what I want Edge to do in his return. I want to see him help push, but especially with people like Priest, who he had a great start, but then unfortunately it dwindled when Bad Bunny got involved, and then he had that US title run, which was just sort of flat. But now this can really start helping him develop his character and get him up the card more, and hopefully go on to bigger and better things.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with a lot of that. And I think that's got to be, you've got to give credit to for Edge for, because a lot of the players involved with this have been sort of lost a little bit outside of things. Yeah, okay, Priest was a long time United States champion, but the Jekyll and Hyde character was really dampering him over the last few months, especially the last few months of that title reign was really hurt by that. Rhea Ripley has never really had a full place where she's felt home on Monday Night Raw in the last calendar year, despite being champion.
Yeah.
So
She's
I
been
think,
stuck in the tag division for the longest possible time. So now that
yeah,
hopefully, now that she's out of a title scene completely and she's more involved with this faction, this is exactly how like they're booking Drew McIntyre at the minute. Like he's been out of the title scene for so long that
yeah.
it's now okay to start introducing him and bringing him back into the title frame because it's fresh essentially. So this is the right thing to do with Rhea. Keep her out of any tag team title matches, any Raw, SmackDown Championship matches for the time being, and just like rebuild her essentially. Now let her go wild as a hill, and this is going to be really good stuff.
Certainly could be. She could be a great shout for Money in the Bank. We're mentioning Money in the Bank as this goes along because obviously Edge being the ultimate opportunist as well, knows a thing or two about cashing that bad boy in as well. So that could be a great experience to pass over to a Rhea and bring that sort of style to her character. I think that could really also take it to the next level. But what I think we should give credit for Edge as well, not just the people that he's getting to his group, but the relevancy he's bringing to the people that he's actually feuding against. Because AJ Styles was alongside almost for the longest time, wasn't doing a lot before the Edge rivalry, and Finn Balor was a guy that was a demon falling off ring ropes. So this guy was losing a lot as well to Theory. Now he seems to have a bit of promise as well. Edge seems to be bringing a lot of people in very, very quickly and making some relevancy.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, he's helping. I mean, this is probably one of AJ's last couple of years. I think he's on basically his last sort of full-time contract now with WWE.
Yeah.
So I think for AJ, it's just a lot of dream matches. So getting him in the ring with Edge is just one of them things. And AJ's essentially doing what Edge is doing from the other side. He's going to help like elevate Damian Priest and, for example, Ciampa if he ends up joining. So just perfect spot for both of these guys at the minute. I've lost train of thought now, but yeah, it's just, I think it's great.
It is. It definitely has been a real highlight of the show. And this is definitely one of the stories of the evening that's shown real progression moving forward, where a lot of things were good matches, good wrestling, but maybe not so much direction going forward of, of everything. Where there's a real development. We've got a real development in this match, and there's a real purpose of need to see Monday Night Raw. Because what's the reaction going to be? Is Liv Morgan going to join up with AJ Styles and Finn Balor? Is it going to be a tag team match? Is it going to be mixed tag? What's going to happen next? There's a real sort of key thing here, and also the other question is with Edge's. Who's next? Is someone else coming in? There can always be that, because every time you think you've got an answer for Edge's group here, Judgment Day, there seems to be a new question thrown out. So it's definitely exciting what's going on here.
I mean, would you be a fan of like a ministry style faction where he's got like 8-9 people? I mean, I know it's like I said, 4 or 5 seems to be sort of the perfect size. But I remember obviously back in the Attitude Era, you'd have like the ministry, you'd have like 10 members, in the corporation would have like 10 members, and you could get away with it back in the 90s. But I don't know if it'd actually pass now because of there's a lot of criticism in wrestling nowadays, and I don't know if it would work having like a 10-man faction.
I think the key is if you can find relevancy for every member you've got in, then do it. But if you can't, then just the ones you can, because then otherwise the group loses credibility, and all of a sudden you end up with NW. We mentioned NW already in the 90s when you got the B Squad, and then it became like Wolfpack, and then the black and white.
People,
and Stevie Ray was leading up with the black and white, and was just literally the Jobber Squad, like it was leading behind him. Just it all of a sudden completely watered down. It wasn't the same thing anymore. So you don't want to do that to this group.
Just as a quick question for you, if it's not, for instance, Ciampa, who would you like to see join Edge? But I'm gonna give you a smaller selection. Which tag team would you like to see to join the new Judgment Day? Because they've essentially got a top of the card, a mid carder, and a female. The faction really needs a tag team to finish them off. But who do you reckon could fit that bill?
That's a really good question, because almost the thing is, outside of names that have been mentioned, I actually think T-Bar would be a really good shout to be brought in. So if you could get him a tag team partner, I think that could be quite good, because you can have 2 big guys going in there. But if it's a legitimate tag team, I mean, Dolph Ziggler and Bobby Roode would be one, but I don't think they've got so much to gain out of it. The people that Edge is bringing in, a Priest, he's not the youngest guy in the world, but he's got promise. Someone with Rhea Ripley has got promise. You need young, promising talent to fill that void and fill that role. Someone that's not living up to their potential. So I don't think I could go with sort of legends. Someone like the Street Profits isn't a fit for me, even though I think Montez Ford could be a great future main event star on his own. Alpha Academy doing awesome what they're doing right now as well. So it's very hard to sort of pick a tag team.
What about the Grizzled Young Veterans?
Now, that I like. Or Drake and Gibson, I think they're called nowadays, sadly. But
they are called that. But for me, they'll always be Grizzled Young Veterans.
They will always be the grizzled. Yeah, for me, I'd be really up for that as well. But that'd be great. That'd be a great shout. I'd be happy to see both of them. And I did see a rumor they could be coming up soon. I saw that rumor.
I say, for me, that'd be a great way to introduce them onto the main roster if you're going to give them essentially a rebirth because they're no longer Grizzled Young Veterans. I think if you brought them in as a tag team for Edge to work with, I think that'd be great. I know, obviously, Edge likes to sort of handpick these stars, but for me, them two are a fantastic tag team who, since leaving UK and going to NXT, their NXT run has been terrible. It's not been the best. There's so many times they should have been NXT tag team champions. But I think bringing them up, putting them with Edge, and having them refresh start, I think it'd be really good.
Absolutely, indeed. There. Well, I tell you, we're going to move to the chat because, like Hulkamania, it's running wild. Literally, we've got so many comments that come flying in. So let's see what we've got here. Jones is saying, "Give Steve a medal." Here, you called this in your prediction. So great to see that ending. Judgment Day appears to be everything that Retribution was not, and I have to agree, it's everything that Retribution was not. The only thing I got wrong, I said it would be Ciampa, not Rhea Ripley, but hey, I think the Rhea Ripley thing was done very well executed.
But there was a little praise for commentary here because commentary said it was a man. At no point did they say it was a woman. The whole time they sold it was a man, and I thought that was an awesome little bit of dialogue for the story.
That certainly wasn't there. Jonesy, thank you for your comment as well. And it was, thank you for bringing it up as well there. I do appreciate you doing that. Also, Martin says, Rhea is just the perfect fit for the vibe that Judgment Day has. I hope that Priest and Ripley in a year can go to the next level. And I totally agree with that. Definitely like to see him at the next level. One thing I predicted a long time ago when this started, I wondered if maybe the long-term direction could be Priest versus Edge at WrestleMania next year.
Yeah, that could be a good shout. I mean, it's a good way to get Priest over if he goes and beats Edge, and you have that as Priest's face turn moment where he goes like almost like how Batista turned on Triple H kind of thing when he was part of Evolution. I imagine. That could be actually. It could be a really good story. It just obviously it's up to WWE to book it correctly between now and Mania.
That's the thing. That's always the key with everything. It's all down to the booking. Martin, that's actually got such a. You mentioned tag teams a minute ago. Said instead of Ciampa, I would have T-Bar and Priest go with the tag titles. I really like that tag team. That would help the tag division. Yeah, I mean that could work because they're two big dudes as well. And if T-Bar was slightly repackaged as well into it, I mean they're both really credible. They're incredible single stars. Do it.
Keep him aesthetically as he is. Remove the face paint. So keep him in his attire, the black bottoms, and all that kind of stuff. Just go back to calling him Dijakovic. Or Dominic, however they're going to name him, because the T-Bar name, let's be honest, is terrible. But yeah, if they just do a Vince and just call him Dijakovic, keep him as aesthetic as he is, lose the face paint, put him in a tag team and Priest, it could work, yeah.
It certainly could indeed there. Jones said that her outfit gave it away. It certainly did indeed. Noob says that Rhea joining a faction is a new thing. So it really is. It's a new thing, and we're going to see how it's going to play out. I'm very excited for it. NXSteve is really excited for it, and we get our first taste of it on Monday Night Raw this evening. So let's see what it's going to bring to the table. So much could come. There's a lot of potential. I think that's one thing we can say we're very excited about. We've been talking about this match for about a good 10, 15 minutes already. That's how excited we are. Jonas says why they didn't delay the masking for Raw. They get that stuff out urgently. They do like to get it out urgently.
I think this is more to do with Edge because Edge is a big advocate for surprises. Like his whole return at the Rumble, like if you've ever watched the story and the return, he goes on about how he's still a big advocate for surprises, and he doesn't really like the internet giving stuff away. So I can imagine this is all Edge, and for me, I'm loving it because it's what I used to love back in the 90s. We used to get these surprises that you don't know about. Yeah, all right, we did kind of know about it, but I hadn't read it anywhere in a dirt sheet that it was 100% confirmed that Rhea was joining. But yeah, like I said, I loved this.
Absolutely. And I think if they'd been given 24 hours, it probably would have been. So it's nice that they bid it. And it was a big thing on pay-per-view as well. Sometimes back in those old days, well, a lot of these big things happen on pay-per-view. Sometimes would have to wait till Raw or SmackDown, but they still would give it on pay-per-view. So it's a big talking point for the premium live event, and obviously gives Backlash a purpose and exciting thing to run back for years to come.
But this is the right thing as well because WWE are booking it the right way, where it's like you have to don't just tune into Mondays and Fridays, tune into the Sundays, buy the pay-per-views, buy the network to see these moments because there's so many things that happen in your I've been watching wrestling for 30 years now, and the amount of times I can sit here and recall watching moments happen. Like if WWE will put a top 10 list out or whatever it is on YouTube, and I watch it and I go, I remember watching that live when that happened, man. It was an absolutely awesome moment.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to have those when they do come along as well. Very special. Jones says, one of Ciampa and Ali to join next. Ali would be his pick. We always assumed Ciampa would be the one because he sort of had the attacks on Ali recently. But what about if Ali was to join the group? Would that be fun for you?
Yeah, it would be. Like I said, I think Ali enjoys being a mouthpiece too much. I mean, I don't know if you've seen his Twitter recently. He put out like a homemade promo where he basically is a broad news broadcaster, reporter, and all the characters that he interviews, and he's basically just talking about theory. And like, at one point, he dresses up as an old woman and just starts cursing, exploited deletives all over the place. And yeah, it was really entertaining. But I think I think he's too much of a mouthpiece for me to join that faction. I think you need someone like Ciampa who can quietly sit in the background plotting like he's done before when he was part of DIY with Johnny Gargano.
Interesting stuff indeed. The only thing I'd like if he was to join Edge's group is that Edge can say to him, "Now you can get your retribution." That's what I just want, that little line. I think that'd be killer. But at the same time, though, I think Ciampa, like you said, the silent assassin probably does fit it like that, because Ali is such a great promo, and have that taken away from him, I think would be hard. But you mentioned their theory. Definitely, United States title is in his future. Whether he's holding it is another thing coming, but he's definitely going to get a match at some point, perhaps even at the next PLE. Rhea Ripley returned heel on us. She certainly did, Martin. You're not wrong with that one. Jones also saying that Rhea versus Bianca Hell in a Cell. Also, imagine if it was Bayley that was under that hood instead. God, that would have been a big return for Bayley to come back as. What would you have felt if that had been Bayley?
I honestly think that would actually have been too small of a deal for Bayley. I think that Bayley's too much of a profile and a name and a legacy on Raw and SmackDown to be a member of a faction. It's the same kind of reasons with Ali as well. Like, she is a mouthpiece, and I think if you were to put her in a faction, it'd kind of be wasted for me with Bayley. But no, don't get me wrong. Yeah, it still would have been exciting. But for me personally, I wouldn't have been interested in it. I would prefer Rhea.
It would have the shock value for certain, Jonesy.
Yes.
I would love it for the shock value. I think it would be cool, actually, in a way. But as I said earlier in this, I feel a little bit that the purpose of this group is to take people that have got the potential, and Bayley's more than potential. She's been and done it. So I think that's where I think Rhea's a better fit. But had it been Bayley, I wouldn't have complained. I would have enjoyed it, and I think it would feel more like NWO than Ministry of Darkness and Brood. So I think it's each to their flavour. I think is what that comes down to. But Martin also asking, will Rhea get new entrance music? Maybe use Edge's one. I think she could possibly keep her own one, but would probably use Edge's when they come out.
I think Priest still uses his, if I'm right. I can't remember. I think he still uses his one. But Priest's was terrible anyway, so using Edge's is a lot better anyway. But no, don't lose Rhea's. Rhea's is one of the best entrance musics on the roster.
It is, but if it's done by one of them sort of ones that the music groups they've had before, then to get rid of, it would be a good excuse just to make it. Yeah, it'd be a good excuse to just have Alter Bridges one instead. Jonesy says he would also have Drake and Gibson into Edge's stable, so you're not alone with your fault there, Steve. Martin was saying that maybe Nakamura or Boogs, they can sort of that type of vibe. It'd be interesting if they were in that stable. I suppose Nakamura would be a set, but obviously Boogs going to be out for a very long time to be a part of Edge's group. I don't think Boogs will be back until at least the end of the year.
But Nakamura you could possibly do. Boogs for me is too much of a comedic character for me. Like he's I don't know, unless he's going to play the entrance music when they come out, but otherwise, no, I think Nakamura could fit, but not Boogs for me.
I'd miss McAfee on the table. I'm sorry, Martin. If McAfee's not sitting on that table, I'd be upset, you know. When I went to Survivor Series, one of my favourite things was seeing Pat McAfee on the table, actually live in there. You couldn't take that away. Absolutely, you couldn't take that away. Jonesy says that Ali's better promo than Ciampa. He certainly is. I mean, Ciampa, for me, he's had that great story with Johnny Gargano, but outside of that, I mean, is there a few that I would say I remember with Ciampa as well? Not so many. Ali is a fantastic promo. His stuff on 205 I've had me gripped for years. So that was one of the main reasons I watched back in the day. Let's move on, shall we? Let's go to a match 4, because another big talking points of this stream is obviously Ronda Rousey beating Charlotte Flair in the I Quit match to win the SmackDown Women's Championship. This was a lot of fun. This was more hardcore based, obviously. They were fighting through the crowd. There was kendo sticks galore, steel chairs involved. Both ladies were refusing to say I quit. I like the fact the armbar was done as well when Charlotte Flair was sort of upside down on the turnbuckle where they both went to the floor. Thought that was quite cool. But then Charlotte obviously looked like she was in control. She had the figure 8 going on, but she let it go because we started to get the B word being used in this. No way, I'm not quitting you. You know what? And obviously then we get to a point
Ronda hits her with a chair while she's in the figure 8. That's where that one breaks up.
Oh, is that really? Okay, fair play.
Yeah,
I must have switched off for a small second there, but literally you get to that last bit anyway, where you sort of hit the Mother's Day quote. Obviously, it being Mother's Day as well in the States. Obviously, Charlotte uses that and says like it's your last chance, and of course that's when Ronda sort of takes advantage, obviously with the steel chair there, and the arm is trapped in it, and then we see the "Do you quit?" and Charlotte says no, and she says, "I hope you'd say that, B," and then obviously she gets in her full submission, and of course the tap out is done, and of course it was later diagnosed by WWE that Charlotte Flair has a broken radius. So Ronda did keep her promise, and Charlotte does have a broken arm. But of course, as we saw there from Steve, yes, it is kayfabe. The injury is not real. Charlotte Flair is expected to be off TV for a certain part of time. I saw this on Wrestle Talk, and the source even says that she's meant to be getting married in the meantime while she's going to be away to Andrade Alidoro. So congratulations will be in order for her while the time she's away. How long she'll be away for is undisclosed at this time, but it looks like Ronda Rousey has won the match, won the feud, won the title, and we'll move on to other things going towards Hell in a Cell. First off, what were your thoughts of the match?
This over-delivered for what a lot of people were expecting this to be. A lot, the whole build to this, everyone, including myself, I think a lot of people have just been like, I really have no interest in this story. The build has been bad at points. The promos have been so 50-50, like Charlotte's, the most recent one, the one where she starts doing the crying, like the baby imitation. I'm like, some parts of that promo were really good, but then she does stuff like that, and it was really, really bad. But the match itself was a hell of a lot better than what I was expecting it to be. I thoroughly enjoyed it. A lot of people are going to say this is probably match of the night, but for me, it's going to be Cody versus Seth. But yeah, I thought this was amazing. My only one qualm with it is when they use kendo sticks, but they don't know how to use kendo sticks. Okay. Like Ronda with them two kendo sticks, I was really uncomfortable watching because I was just waiting for Charlotte to get caught at the wrong angle with one. But apart from that, like I said, I thought this was great. I like the touch as well of having the referee carry the microphone around instead of doing just a tap out finish. I thought that was a great sort of flashback to the 90s when they used to do that, like when Rock used to fought Mankind in a I Quit match.
Yeah, it was more sports entertainment vibe. It was how the classic I Quit matches are rather than just a submission match. They added the sports entertainment quality to this match, and I think it greatly benefited the match. And there was a chance that people could have turned on this match. They could have said that this wasn't for them, like you said, on the build-up of the story. But like you say, it over-delivered, and the crowd bought into it. They didn't, crap all over the result at the end as well of Ronda winning the championship, because there's no doubt she won't be losing that belt for a very, very long time now, I wouldn't expect. So, I mean, looking at it, if WWE had known that all this was going to play out and it went to how they hoped, should this be in the main event? It's the one championship match on the show. It was the one stipulation match. You think it should have done?
If they'd have known it was going to get over like how it did, this should have main evented. But you can see why they put it in the middle of the card. They don't know if the crowd's going to boo the hell out of it. I mean, yeah, all right. The tables were over at one point because the crowd were constantly chanting for tables. But you got to remember that they've got what's going to happen in this match down, and that announcers table obviously didn't break until the main event, which as you can see why we didn't get nothing like that. So there was obviously spots in place, so that's why we didn't get a table spot. But yeah, like I said, this should have main evented if they knew it was going to be over like this.
Great point you make, by the way. This is why matches aren't called on the fly like that. If there's a table spot for later in the evening, that crowd has to wait for it. You can't just say, I'm going to do it, because it takes away from their spot as well as what happens later in the evening. So it's a great point you make there. Yeah,
I'll get into another spot about the table later as well when we get into the main event.
Absolutely, indeed, there. But then obviously this for me, Charlotte was never winning this match. I think it was a foregone conclusion that babyfaces don't quit in these styles of matches. I'm guessing it's the right result for you, and I wonder what the direction is going to be going forward then.
Well, you've got obviously the reinvention of Lacey Evans, which I'm seriously worried for, because they're doing this whole United States Marine Corps kind of character, which, don't get me wrong, is a massive, massive babyface thing, especially because obviously it's in the States, and the obviously the country itself, they love their armed forces. My one worry with Lacey Evans is if they try and turn her heel when she's trying to portray a United States Marine Corps character. I think that could be absolute suicide for WWE. I could be wrong, and they could book it really well, But like I said, they have their own thing. But they have what's going to happen with Lacey Evans happen. But yes, you have Lacey Evans come in, but like I said, I think she's going to be a face at the minute. Hopefully, we get Bayley return, and maybe we get a heel Bayley going up against Ronda Rousey. I think that could be a good dynamic going forward.
That's a fantastic suggestion because obviously she's waiting in the wings to come back. This would be a perfect opportunity to bring her back into the fold in WWE right now as well. You mentioned Lacey Evans there. I just want to quickly touch on it as you've talked about it. Obviously, we had those 5 video packages that were fantastic, and obviously a lot of emotion to bring those stories out and to share them with us and stuff like that. Really organically gets her over as an on-screen personality, which of course I think no one's really been into Lacey Evans to the same level as what they were with those being portrayed on our screens. But then to bring her out, and then it's like she's asking you to respectably applaud her to come to the ring. She would have gotten applause anyway. I do, like you say, I hope they're not going to try and transition that into a heel turn, because that would really be really bad and really weird. After everything that's gone through, they could just organically have her as one of the top baby faces on SmackDown, and it would get over so well. She could even have a run as champion the way it could organically get over. So I really hope they don't wreck it, but certainly Lacey Evans could be a potential one that could be there. One I'm going to suggest as well, because she's been very quiet in the background so far, but Raquel Rodriguez, should she just ditch the babyface smiley thing and just go heel, because it's not working for me?
Yeah, you could do. I mean, yeah, like I said, they've done the same thing with Ciampa. 1 week Ciampa's a face, and the next minute he's a heel. So WWE can do it. They're known for doing it, but they need to do something, because I think there's only like 7 female superstars on the SmackDown roster, especially if Charlotte's being written off. And you've got obviously Ronda, who's now champ, face. You've got Lacey Evans, who's potentially a face. Then you've got who was it you just mentioned? Brian's gone completely blank.
Raquel Rodriguez.
Raquel, yeah. She's obviously a face at the minute. So they do, unless they bring Bayley back, they're really lacking in sort of a top heel dynamic in that women's division on SmackDown.
So the question then could be, should Ronda go heel?
That's a good shot, actually. I like the sound of it, because you think she's been the baby face this whole time. If she now comes out on Friday and turns around and just lays into the crowd, yeah, that actually could be a good way to go. And I think it's got a potential for a big shock factor.
It certainly has. The only other name I could think that could work with it, where they could do that dynamic first if they wanted to, is Shayna Baszler. But as Martin's gone on and saying, she's sort of stuck in the tag team right now. But they need to bring her back to her NXT days and challenge Ronda at SummerSlam. They got the history. I would be down for a Baszler and Ronda feud. Do you reckon that they could work? They could portray it really well, MMA style. That'd be a great excuse as well for the old Lions Den to be brought out.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's actually a good shot for the Lions Den. But yeah, I'm a massive Shayna Baszler fan, and since she's come up, she's just not been the same. I think maybe do like a Jericho Kevin Owens and have them as best friends, and then one of them like have Shayna turn on Ronda, and then go with it that way, and have like the best friends turned enemies dynamic. I think would probably work better for their dynamic, because they're supposed to be long-time friends. So that's what I would do.
Absolutely. Do you know what? I've just had a little fantasy booking ideas. You've been talking as this comment's come up as well there. What they should do, they've got the championship match on SmackDown, I think, this upcoming week, Natalya and Baszler going for those titles. And people may not like the start of it, because I'm going to break up another tag team. We don't need to keep breaking up teams, I know, but hear me out. Natalya is the one that loses on behalf of the team. Baszler flips, snaps, and of course then does that sort of like Kukuda clutch to really sort of pass out and really just look dominant over Natalya. At that point, I'm sick of being in tag teams. I was in another tag team before, and it's always people letting me down. I need to stand out myself, and you can start having to have these submission wins as well. Try and sort of get that sort of cage environment, and perhaps have her confront Ronda Rousey, and you can start a build between them two towards Hell in a Cell, and maybe that could work better as a Hell in a Cell environment, because you can get that personal. We've got 4 or 5 weeks to get this put together in a feud. At least as to start off with anyway, even if you want to do one of sort of these gimmick matches further down the line. But to have them two in a feud together, I think could be well. We need to start playing into the history and playing into them two now if you want to get that match ready to go for Hell in a Cell or within the next couple of months.
Yeah, my only fear is obviously Ronda's ability. Like, she's not the most fluent in-ring competitor. She is kind of green in places. So if you were to have her in, for instance, a Hell in a Cell dynamic, it actually probably would make. No, you're right. It actually probably would make more sense because of her slight greenness when it comes to wrestling. To put her in a Hell in a Cell, if you give her a gimmick match and a dynamic, it actually may work in Ronda's favor a bit better.
I have to wait and see. Interesting, very interesting to see where the direction will be going next. We'd like to know what everyone thinks in the comments below. What do you think's next for Ronda Rousey? And obviously, when Charlotte comes back, when do you think she'll come back? I'm guessing she'll probably try and get that championship back when she does return. That probably will be the last match before there's a draft. We'll have to wait and see. But Noob says that the match was insane. Not to mention Charlotte chose the violence on Mother's Day of all days. Absolutely, there was violence indeed. And let's not forget Ronda. She wasn't an innocent party in that match either. And as well as that, Noob also says, have Oscar win Money in the Bank, cashing on Ronda, because a lot of people are still waiting for that match between those two. It's a match that definitely would be fun when it eventually does go down.
Yeah, the problem with Asuka is obviously post-pandemic, she's not really done a lot, and I know she's in this sort of Becky Lynch feud at the minute. I think if Asuka was to win it, it'd be a bit lackluster for someone to win it. I think it would be better off someone else winning it.
At the moment, I think if Asuka could win the Becky Lynch feud, I think that would propel her back up. I think she needs to win that feud. That would be, then I think it's a totally different ballpark because they have the opportunity to do that right now because Becky's on free fall. But that story, if they can keep that going on a bit longer as well, that could benefit Asuka and benefit other talents because if Becky puts other people over during the summer, she's already a name. And Asuka has been a top name before, could easily be one again. So I would like to see Rousey and Asuka, but Asuka currently is on the wrong show. That's the problem with that. But certainly that could be a match that can go into the fall or even to the winter season. Should it be a case where they end up on the same show after the draft? But I do agree with you though, Steve, because if she does lose to Becky Lynch in that feud, then at this moment it wouldn't click for me right now. She does that. Becky Lynch feud is key, and as I've got to say in the latest Ask SCW, which actually was Noob's questioning that, I'm thoroughly enjoying the Becky and Asuka feud so far, and I think that that's definitely got legs to go very, very far if they wanted to in WWE. But we'll go on to our next match because we still have other topics to go, and we're 56 minutes into the stream, and that's of course the time we're going to bring up Madcap Moss versus Happy Corbin. Please don't leave us. To be fair, there's not a lot to discuss with this match really. Probably was the calmest match of the evening. Corbin brings out a brand new move, apparently according to Michael Cole. He brings out a senton. Good on you, Corbin. Absolutely great to see it. We love to see it. But Madcap Moss eventually with a sunset flip roll up picking up the victory, which I was surprised about. He didn't get the the punchline, I think is his finishing move. I believe is the right name for it. I'm surprised it wasn't a full-on clear conclusive finish. It feels like maybe this could go on to SmackDown shows going forward, but definitely for me was the right winner. But you've got something to say on this.
Yeah, the result itself and the match itself just felt very TV. This is a very SmackDown match that should have been on TV, shouldn't have been on a pay-per-view. But with everything that's been going on, especially with the last interaction between them two on Happy Talk on Monday, I believe it was on Raw. I'll get my days confused now. Oh, the show's confused. Obviously, you had Madcap Moss making a lot of jokes about all his character changes and stuff like that. And this was the one prediction I got wrong. And I said Corbin was going to win. And I got it wrong stupidly because I should have put, no. Mosh is going to win this because I was texting you the other day and said, I believe we're going to now get another reinvention of Baron Corbin. So him losing actually makes all the sense in the world if that is what they're planning to do. And I hope they do because I've never been a fan of this Happy Corbin gimmick. It's just really tacky. And I think of all these characters he's done since being on the main roster, even when he was the likes of King Corbin, this Happy Corbin one's just not done it for me at all. But yeah, you can just see that I think Corbin's going to get to a snapping point and he's just going to go back to maybe the Lone Wolf phase, or we're just going to get a new variation of Baron Corbin. But this is what I'm hoping for. But otherwise, the match, it was just a very TV match.
Absolutely. Do you know what I'd like to see? Because I do think a Corbin change could come as well. Because when you mentioned me, I was like, that would be cool. Because I think Corbin needs it. Because I thought Happy Corbin was awesome for like the first week. And then I kind of was like, nah. And since then, it's never really picked off further. And call me cheesy with this. I think the next incarnation should be Unhappy Corbin. Because what you could do is he starts losing all his matches now. He can't get. He's lost Madcap Moss. And all of a sudden, I think things just start falling apart again. And we get a transition back into the broke Corbin that we had before. Now, poor Corbin, because this is probably his best gimmick he's had in WWE, and it's probably the worst look he's had to have. I mean, imagine have that hair all year round, bless him. But at the same time, I do think he was getting so over from that. And I'd like to think WWE might have learned from their mistake with it. But we'll have to wait and see.
I would prefer a crazy Corbin,
Okay.
where he just completely snaps and he becomes unhinged, and his actions become unpredictable. Like when the fact that Cole made such a big deal out of him dropping that senton and being a new move in his arsenal. I would just love to see an unhinged Baron Corbin, and he just absolutely goes crazy. Like, I can't even think of someone who I can possibly match it to as a even an even crazier version of Dean Ambrose, essentially a John Moxley. Essentially, what Baron Corbin could be is just an absolute nutcase who just doesn't care about hurting people and just goes on to destroy everyone.
I like the sound of that. And maybe that's what makes him happy, because of the fact that he just nothing's going right for him. Nothing's going right for him. So he's got to take out on everybody else, and he doesn't care how he's got to do it. He's willing to hurt as well. That certainly could be an interesting idea. Madcap Moss and Omos, very quickly, both of them picking up victories on this show. WWE clearly probably trying to make new stars out of both of these, but obviously people do complain that we're not getting new stars built in WWE. Is it because they're the wrong stars that people don't want? I've asked this to Jonesy before. I'd like to get your take on it.
It's 50 of one and half of another. Yes, it's not the superstars we want to be pushed. Like, for how many years we've been crying for Ricochet to do something better on the main roster, and luckily enough, he's now the Intercontinental Champion. But props to Madcap Moss. That guy has been non-existent for forever, until he was put in with Corbin. This guy was in NXT. I'm sure he was part of a tag team. I'm sure he was. I'm sure he was a tag team with like Mojo Rawley or someone, wasn't he? And then they got broken up, and then he got brought up to the main roster, and he just done nothing. He just sat in catering all day. But his relevancy is like, they're making a name out of him, which is what they're going to do. They've invested a lot of money in this guy. They've paid him a really good wage, and they're now going to get their money's worth out of it. And like I said, if they're willing to invest the time in him, they may see a return on it. Like I said, he's getting over slowly but surely. Like, some of the stuff he's doing is working, but I think the bigger picture is to reinvent Corbin and get Corbin over as a top heel.
I totally agree with that. I certainly like to see Corbin, at least around the Intercontinental title picture later in the late part of the summer. Madcap Moss definitely could be someone who could position himself should a heel take that title at some point. The thing with me with Madcap Moss is he's got for what people would be looking for in the wrestling industry, got a great look. I think he's a good worker as well, and he's getting his opportunity at last. Like you say, he's had to wait a very long time to get. So I'm very happy to see him in this position. He still, at the moment, has got a bit of cringe with his character that WWE making him do, but maybe they can iron that out. And like you say, he can get over a bit more slowly. Even though the kickoff panel said, get rid of those suspenders, he's not getting rid of them anytime soon. He said, look, you've got to find as many ways as possible to hold up your pants. So, if that's the way it's going to work for him for the meantime, that's how it's going to work.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to make the most of this character no matter what. Like, this is his shot to do something, and he's going to, like I said, he's knocking it out of the park. A lot of people don't like the character, but let's be honest, that's not his character. That's what they've told him to do, and he's trying his hardest to make it work. And props to him, because he's getting over slowly but surely.
It certainly is indeed there. Let's go to the chat then. We'll move on to our main event. Moss was in the tag team with Tino Sabatelli back in NXT. So there we go. That's the name back in the blast from the past there. Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you, Martin, for making us aware of that so that we knew. And as well as that, we've got Noob saying that Moss versus Corbin was way better than that zombie match. So that's Noob's take on that one there for us as well. Martin's not really got much to say on this, though. He said that, as they used to say, be the happy folk, like how Cole says it. And as well, we have got here as well, Martin saying that honestly would have Moss versus Reigns at a SmackDown. It could be a non-title, put Reigns heat, and then put Moss in a good babyface spot. Maybe, look, defeat sometimes can get someone over. Maybe it could be a good move to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's Martin's right there. Like I said, if Roman was to come out and completely destroy Moss, you could get some serious face heat for Moss there.
Absolutely, because that's my worry after the Happy Corbin stuff. Is then that's when they lose plans of what to do with Moss, and then they all of a sudden he vanishes. That's what my concern is with that. But that will be for another day. We'll have to wait and see how it will play into. But we have one more match to talk about, but we also have a couple of big talking points to talk about, of course, especially Money in the Bank being one of them and Hell in a Cell being another one coming up as well. But let's talk about the Bloodline defeating RK McBro, or as I prefer, R. Claybro. I think that's much better. That was said in our comments on the prediction show. I mean, this match for me was a good story. WWE know how to tell six-man tags. Say what you want. The titles weren't on the line. We understand all of that, and I would have preferred that. But the match itself was still good. I like the fact that, Roman Reigns wanted to keep away from Drew McIntyre, sort of teased the idea and went attacked, Jey Uso, to the point that at one point where he tagged himself in, not realizing that he would then be facing Drew McIntyre. I thought that was well done, put together. But for me, one of the big parts of this match, and it's probably the early part we want to go into before we go into the finish, was the hot tag and the reaction for Randy Orton on the night. Randy Orton was so over. And a part of me has to ask this question to you nice and early, Steve, because obviously the direction is Drew versus Roman Reigns, but should we really be looking at Randy versus Reigns? Because it feels like Randy is the one that people want at the minute.
Do you know what it is? Randy, every week for as long as I can remember recently, has just loved getting these hot tags. You can see him on the apron. He's stomping his feet away. He just wants these hot tags, and the crowd is so into it. And when Randy's into it and the crowd are into it, you're just going to make money. And yeah, by all means, they could quite happily, they could quite easily book Randy versus Drew, and it would be money because everyone loves Randy Orton at the minute. He's got such a good face run at the minute. Like, it's one of his best of his career ever.
Absolutely. I feel in the last couple of years, Randy was rejuvenating himself completely. Obviously, the rivalry against Edge when he was a heel, his championship run at that point. Obviously, had the feud with Drew then at Hell in a Cell at this time last year, if I'm not mistaken. No, not last year. It was 2 years ago that they did that. It was Bobby Lashley that Drew had last year. But obviously, then you go with this tag team run with RK Bro. It's worked really, really well. And like you say, like you said, the hot tags, obviously, Jones has said to me a long time, who was really impressed you when you saw them live? Randy Orton, for the things you just said, because his timing of everything, he's the experience, he knows how to click and time things and make it where everyone just is drawn into what he's doing. And like you said, those hot tags always get a reaction and an eruption from the crowd when you watch each and every week on TV. So Randy also knows what he's doing. And I do think that would be a big thing at one point, because as we got towards the end of the match, the Claymore got hit on Roman Reigns, which got a big reaction. But when the RKO got hit, place went absolutely crazy. That was the one that went mad. And obviously, Jonesy predicted that it would be Randy Orton that would pin Jimmy Uso. They teased that, and it looked like it was on. I was ready to jump out my seat for Jonesy, but then, of course, Jey Uso broke up the pin. They ended up going outside. Obviously, the table spot was done. And obviously, as we got towards the finish there of the match, it was Riddle and Jey Uso that was left in the ring, was the RKO off the top rope. But, of course, Roman had tagged the ankle, came in, hit the spear.
That was a beautiful tag, by the way. Like the quickness of it. If you missed it, you'd have thought, why is he the legal man? But it was a beautiful tag.
And sometimes those things, those little details just make matches that much better. And obviously Roman picking up the win for the Bloodline there with the spear at the end. So I want to get your take on the match before we go on the fallout of the result and everything else.
The match was it's what six-man match. It's what tag team is essentially, mate. It's a spot fest, and it's entertaining. It's minute after minute. There's just always something going on around the ring that you're always going to miss something, and it makes you want to go back and watch the match again to catch the bits that you did miss. I thoroughly loved this. Yes, for me, the result was predictable. I predicted that the Bloodline would win because it's just typical WWE 410, and RK Bro and Drew, they've just been getting over the Bloodline. They've been getting over the Usos. Like, they've just been pinning them and beating them and standing tall every week. That it was, for me, inevitable that the Bloodline were going to win this. And because of the characters in it, it was always going to be Roman picking up the pinfall, and for me, it was always going to be Riddle taking the pinfall, because Drew and Randy are the bigger names out of the three, so you're always going to have the smallest name take the pinfall, unfortunately. But to go back to what we were talking to earlier as well about the table spot in this match where Roman puts Drew through it, they have actually been booking the ring announcers table strong recently, and I mean that literally, because whenever we see the ring announcers table get used on a Raw or a SmackDown, someone does a back body drop on it or whatever, that table doesn't break. They've super secured it on Raw and SmackDown. But the fact that it broke when Roman does an Uranagi or whatever move it was to Drew and put him through the table, and the table breaks, they're booking the announcers table super strong, and it made me die because I thought it's just the simplest things that make this elevated, because it's like no one else has put anyone else through a table in weeks, but Roman can put Drew through a table, and it just thought it was little bits of storytelling that I just thought were really good about this. My only other one issue is that because the Bloodline have won, Roman's still not got anything going forward. Unless Shinsuke Nakamura is going to come back and challenge him again and relive that story that they started a couple of weeks ago before Roman injured him. I don't know. But yeah, it just leaves me sort of scratching my head at the minute as who's going to be next to challenge Roman, because he's beaten a lot of people.
That's the thing. I mean, this is why I thought the babyfaces were going over here. It thought it made more sense because whoever got the pinfall, it meant Drew could go for Roman, and that then obviously the Usos and RK Bro can continue going and telling the cell. But here's my take then coming through, because I've had now a few hours to dissect the show and think, well, why would the Bloodline win? Why did this go and last, and why is this a result? Because we've got no direction going forward. Well, I read a report a while ago about that the next defense for the titles from Roman could be at a stadium show, which of course the next one is Money in the Bank. So that would make sense for there. So what would we do for Hell in a Cell? We could put all 6 of these in Hell in a Cell. That's what we could be doing next, and that's where the baby faces pick up the win. Maybe that's the point where Drew beats one of the others. Maybe even Roman. I doubt Roman would take the fall, but that's the point where someone gets over at this point, and you say, right, okay, well, the Bloodline have lost. Now it comes to the point where the titles are on the line when it comes to the big shows. But that's the only way I can take it from that way, because otherwise I'm not sure why this result happened, because Roman doesn't need it at this point. I think one of the Usos could have took the fall and it wouldn't have hurt anything. But of course, if you've got a cohesive unit like the Bloodline, they should be beating 3 people that aren't used to being in 6-man tag team action. So there are parts of this where it makes sense and others where it doesn't.
But not kayfabe,
Exactly, yeah. So I think that's where I take is that I think this could carry over. I don't think it's done at this point. I still think they told a story. Drew is the next guy. There's no question about it. Whether Cody wants to insert himself or not, they've told a story in this match that it will be Roman versus Drew as the next championship match. It's just a matter of if and when they do so. But
that logic is sound. The fact that they could redo this for Hell in a Cell. We obviously know Roman's history with being in Hell in a Cell when he faced Jimmy, was it, I believe, in a Hell in a Cell match a couple of years ago? Jay, sorry. So Roman's got history with the match itself. And they've all, to be fair, so Randy's got history. Randy and Drew, didn't they have a match in Hell in a Cell? Yeah, they did. Yeah, Randy and Drew faced each other. The Usos have been in a Hell in a Cell against the New Day, which was a fantastic match a couple of years ago. Which was the only one I think obviously hasn't been in there is Riddle, but that's sound booking. That's a very good possibility that we could get all 6 of these back in Hell in a Cell next month.
And then they've got a chance to build a story up. And I think people will be like, oh, there's no championship on the line here again. But I think it definitely, I just think that's the only thing that can make sense out of it. I don't see otherwise why this result happened, but it's interesting to take from it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't ever think we're going to get this tag team unification match. I think this is all just a purpose to building towards Drew and Roman. So you're going to get this 6-man match at Hell in a Cell, and then they'll get the win. RK McBro will get the win. This will then lead to obviously Drew, maybe even leading into Drew taking on Randy, or we get a fatal 3-way between Randy, Riddle, and Drew to see who takes on Roman, and then this leads to the breakup of RK Bro. There's so many things that you could play off this dynamic just from this one thing that you thought of here.
Absolutely indeed. And that's the thing, because once Roman goes through one, we said there, Randy Orton's so over at the moment. Could he be a future contender for SummerSlam, for example? That would be interesting as well. So there's lots of dynamics of how it can go. Obviously, that was the match that closed off the show, and the chat is starting to go in full stand. So let's see what people are saying. We've got Jeff Samuel in the house that says, sup guys, hope you're doing well. Thank you for checking out the stream, Jeff. We want to make sure we quickly get the stuff that goes on with Roman first before we go into other comments. Martin says that Paul Heyman's involvement and putting knowledge into Reigns when he was getting to ring was great heel heat. I love that as well. Yeah, there was a big discussion, wasn't there? That was great fun to see. I really like that comment there. Paul Heyman's always a genius, isn't he?
Yeah, you'd be surprised at the amount of people that hate Paul Heyman, and you're just like, are you watching the same guy that I'm watching? This guy is amazing. He's been amazing at everything he's ever done. And yeah, his work is just second to none. And I love the stuff Paul Heyman does. But this dynamic with Roman Reigns is just next level for me. It's so good.
As indeed there. Russell Red in the house. Thank you for checking out the stream, by the way. We will go through all the comments, just trying to keep them with this match first, and we'll go through every single one that isn't. Paul Heyman for Hall of Fame 2023. So we've mentioned Heyman. It's something about Heyman that missing from Manji's facial experience is top notch, and his angry face. Honestly, there's nothing like Paul Heyman. I've always, he's one of my favorites of all time.
On a SmackDown this week, when the Bloodline come out and he hands Roman the microphone, and then Roman just hands him back the microphone, and Heyman's just like, "Oh, you messed up now," and he's just like, "Oh man, I'm so excited for this now." It was and he's so good.
He's absolutely the best. There's no doubt about it. Thank you for that comment. And he also says agrees. And we need to build up some people who can beat Roman Reigns. He agrees with our point. And same here. Master says as well. No issue is that there's no momentum now to face Reigns. Exactly. That's what we need to get for the next show. But as Russell says, we need to strike while the iron is hot. So yeah, we'll have to go with it and see what it's going to lead to. But yeah, it's really exciting overall of the future direction. But for Roman Reigns, then, do we think that could be the Hell in a Cell main event, that 6-man, rather than him versus Drew one-on-one?
I actually like the way you booked it. I would actually prefer to see that way. I don't think they'll do a one-on-one in Hell in a Cell. I just think it's. Don't get me wrong. If there's going to be a title change, it needs to be in front of a big crowd. Hell in a Cell is going to be in front of 20,000-30,000 people. That title change isn't going to happen outside of a stadium, so it's not going to be. It's only going to be at the Big Four or Money in the Bank.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it seems to be at that point there, and we'll have to see how it is going to going forward. And we have Jeff Samuel says here, as we talk going now towards what matches we think will carry through to Hell in a Cell before we give our final grade of the show. Seth versus Cody Part 3, Hell in a Cell. Are you down for this, guys? Also, wasn't expecting Moss versus Corbin to be a decent match. Also, Lashley versus Omos. Yeah, I mean, both of those matches I think over-delivered, although I still wouldn't have them as the high star regards. But as we mentioned earlier in the stream, we'd be kind of down for Seth versus Cody Part 3 inside Hell in a Cell. But Steve also made mention also of the idea of this carrying over to WrestleMania. The idea perhaps maybe that Seth wins Money in the Bank, Cody wins the Rumble, Seth wins the title, or one of the titles, and then that's the match of WrestleMania next year. So, but obviously, if that could be a long-term direction instead of Money in the Bank, just to re-clarify this for Jeff, would you be okay though to see a Part 3 in Hell in a Cell in the meantime?
Yes, as long as they can book it right, as long as the story makes sense, because I don't want it to just be the fact of, we're just having a third part for the sake of having a third part. I don't want it to just be like this match. This match was so perfect because of the ending, like the way that Cody had to slightly cheat to win, and it's like I don't know what adding a Hell in a Cell dynamic to it adds, but I'd be up to seeing it because these two can put on a real good match.
Absolutely. Do you think Edge and Styles then is a better fit then for Hell in a Cell at this point?
Oh yeah, with the way that Edge is being at the minute and his whole Judgment Day gimmick and the fact it's called Hell in a Cell, then yeah, Edge versus AJ makes more sense.
And also, people keep getting involved on behalf then. So not only now can people come ringside, they can't get in the cage as well. So maybe Styles versus Edge could be the one. Yeah, you say that. We say it every time.
Someone could be under the ring.
Could be, absolutely. And let's be fair, people have broke down the doors before. Remember when Brock Lesnar calls DQs in Hell in a Cell? Let's not go down that avenue. We'll probably sour the paper.
There was a big red guy once ripped a door off a cage. I remember that.
Absolutely. That was the first one ever, if we're not mistaken. He went on to have quite a good career in WWE. Let's go to Jason Michaels coming in because he's coming and throwing one in. Thank you, Jason, for joining the stream with us. He says, since Rhea has joined Judgment Day is interesting. And also here at SCW that someone was backstage but didn't appear yesterday. Also, Oscar versus Bennett, Hell in a Cell, maybe. So that is a feud. Obviously, that's not been on this show, but certainly could be something that could go down for Hell in a Cell. Maybe not in the cage for me, but certainly a match I'd like to see on that premium live event.
Yeah, for me, the Hell in a Cell has to have a reason behind why they put these people in the match. Like you said, AJ versus Edge, it stops people from interfering in the match, which you then might hopefully get an actual result, like AJ might actually be able to finally get a straight win over Edge. But yeah, Asuka versus Becky, yes, it can happen. In the Hell in a Cell, not for me.
Do you think any women's matches will go in the Cell this year? At the moment, it doesn't look likely, does it?
Maybe Becky versus Liv you could do. Again, it needs to kind of make sense if they book it right, but otherwise, no. But then again, like I said, the past couple of years we've had logistical booking when it comes for a women's. Like we've had Bayley versus Sasha Banks in Hell in a Cell. I think it was 2 years in a row that was, and it made sense as to why the match was in there. So yeah, it just depends what they're going to do over the next sort of 4 or 5 weeks until the next pay-per-view.
Certainly indeed there. Very quickly, I want to bring up, though, because we've kind of discussed what we'll carry to Hell in a Cell. The chat is still throwing chats in, so I want to give everyone the opportunity to get those questions in for 10 minutes before we close off the stream. So what I want to do is I want to give some final scores for the show that we've just seen. So I want to quickly get star rating. What we'll do is overall show, what was your rating out of 10?
I'm actually going to book this pretty high, and I'm going to say a 9 for me.
Nice.
Thoroughly enjoyed it. The pacing of it, the timing was great. The wrestling was good. My only downside is obviously the Corbin Madcap was essentially a TV match for me. And then I know this is a bit of a hard one to critique it for, but obviously is the Bloodline winning because it depends. Obviously there's no story going forward from the pay-per-view, but like I said, that can change Friday or tomorrow or tonight even, so we'll see where that goes. But for me, I'd have to say a 9 because I was thoroughly entertained by Backlash. 2 years on the bounce for me. This is beginning to become one of my favorite pay-per-views now.
Absolutely, yeah, there have been some great ones over the years, and I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 because I just think minus the so much storyline progression, I think that could have made that to a 9 or a 10 for me, but overall, I do think this was a very enjoyable show. It was a short show, very digestible. I could go and watch that again, no problem. So yeah, I'm going to go for an 8 out of 10 for me. It was I was very happy with what I watched on this show. Let's get some star ratings as well very quickly through the matches. So out of your 5 stars, let's not do no 6s and 7s like Dave Meltzer, but what would you give this as a star rating for these two?
4.5 for me.
So for Cody and Seth, 4.5 for me. I'm going to go for a solid 4. For Omos and Bobby Lashley,
straight in the middle, 2.5. No, it'll be generous 3 actually. I'll say 3 because of the dynamic and obviously the hurt lock and all the little details in this one.
Fair play with that one. I'm going to go for a 2.25 just for myself personally on this one. I think this was almost his best match in a WWE ring in a singles match capacity anyway. Edge versus AJ Styles.
I'm going to say 4 just because I think Cody versus Seth was a match of the night for me, so I can't rate it the same. So I'm just going to say slightly under.
Yeah, I feel the same there. I'm going to go 3.75, but it's just under the 4. This was my second favorite match of the night, so that for me it's just under it. And obviously with the Rhea stuff, that would bump it up to a 4 as well. But that's just I digress. It's out after the match. But for the Ronda Rousey versus Charlotte Flair, what would be your star rating?
3.75. This was a good match. It was better than what I expected it to be, but obviously it's not better than the other 2 matches we've already spoke about.
Absolutely. I'm going to go for a 3.5 as well, and I do think we're still very, very well put together. Madcap Moss versus Happy Corbin.
1. I hate to say it, it's a 1. The only thing that can maybe bump this up if I was to re-review this later on is depending on where the story goes from here. But for me, it's 1. This was just essentially a TV match for me. Yeah,
I would agree it's a TV match. I'm going to go for a 1.75 just because of the fact that maybe 2 would probably be around the mark because it did okay, but didn't do anything more for me. And just for the main event there, the Bloodline versus RK and Mac Bro.
I'm going to put this up there with a 4 as well, just because, again, it's a tag match. I love tag team wrestling. This had segments and spots and stuff that will make you go back and watch it just to rewatch it to pick up what you didn't pick before. Yeah, I finally enjoyed it. Again, it's just the outcome and the story going forward for me, but otherwise a 4.
Absolutely. Again, I'm going to have to go around the 3.5, 3.75. It really would be in the middle of that idea, but I'll go with a 3.5. There were some really, really hot moments in this match, but it was a standard tag team match, not so much stakes on the line, but the match quality itself was extremely good. So we have covered all those parts there, and we have sort of talked about Money in the Bank as well very quickly, but we'll do so again just quickly of what our thoughts are. Will Cody win Money in the Bank? You obviously give that fantasy booking idea, but obviously he was a big part of this thing that was on this advert here. I think, like you say, it makes more sense for him to actually probably win the Royal Rumble. But with the idea of 1 male, 1 female, they could be in the main event of WrestleMania. This makes this almost more important than the Royal Rumble at this point. Do you like the dynamic of how high they've put this on a pedestal here?
Yeah, I mean, like we was talking before we came on air, whether it's a script reading gone wrong, but then again, if it was read wrong, why would they put it out to air? So yeah, but then like a lot of people are saying, so hang on a minute, if you win Money in the Bank, does that automatically put you in the main event for Mania? It's very strange how it came across and what it means, but Money in the Bank's always been it changed the dynamic from a top 5 to a top 5 pay-per-view because of this one. It's been their most successful thing successful sort of gimmick match that they've ever put out. outside of sort of the top four, like the Royal Rumble and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is as well, maybe we're overreacting a bit because I've seen the internet go crazy with this. I mean, he does say can main event WrestleMania. He says main event WrestleMania. He doesn't say they will. So maybe WWE always changes plans. But the idea is, though, there could be some long-term booking in amongst this. And one person I had as an early favorite to win this was Theory. Could you see the idea of, say, for example, you got your idea of where it kind of would go away a little bit because Seth obviously couldn't win Money in the Bank. But say Seth was to win the gold, Cody was to win the Rumble, and then say Cody wins the big one at WrestleMania, for then Theory to cash in afterwards at WrestleMania, or do the same to Seth as what Seth did to other people at WrestleMania 31. Could that sort of idea of a storyline work really, really well for you?
As much as it probably would be entertaining, I think it's too soon for Theory. I think that he needs to have a solid United States run. He needs to go 3 months, 4 months, 5 months with this United States title. Start him off strong with a decent run with the United States Championship. I wouldn't really want to see him be in the Money in the Bank match as the United States champion and then him walking around with both the Money in the Bank briefcase and the United States Championship. I think it's too much for one character. Let's be honest, the Money in the Bank briefcase is a big story. Well, if it's booked right, it's a big story dynamic. It's not been done right in the women's division the last couple of years. But yeah, I think it's too much for one character to be putting out on TV. So I think for me, next year, yes. This year, I think it's too soon.
Well, interesting you mentioned that with the women as well, because usually it's how fast can they cash it in? Because usually the women, obviously, apart from Carmelo, had it for a long time. Outside of the longest it's ever been is a day. Nikki ASH was a day. I think Bailey did it the same night.
But even Carmella's was obviously under controversy because what's his name won it?
Yeah,
James Ellsworth won it for him. So it's been a bit of a shambles, the Money in the Bank for the ladies since. But yeah, Nikki ASH has cashed it in like the next day, and then you had I think was it Alexa Bliss cashed it in the same night when she won it. So
on Ronda Rousey,
it's a very, I don't understand how you can book the Money in the Bank briefcase wrong. It's such a great heel dynamic prop to use, but yeah, they've just been getting it wrong, unfortunately.
Absolutely indeed. And it's interesting because Ronda's been cashed in before successfully on, so she's not necessarily 100% secure. She could be cashed in on, and she could lose the gold.
Ronda's lost 2 WrestleManias. That woman isn't invincible. Like I said, if she'd have won at Mania this year, then maybe I would have been a bit more hesitant for someone to cash it in on her and win. But the fact that Ronda's lost 2 Mania matches, it wouldn't surprise me if whoever wins it cashes in on her.
It would be interesting, wouldn't it? And obviously, Bianca Belair obviously has been vulnerable to returns before and surprises. So both champions could be vulnerable. We'll have to wait and see how it was going to play out. But very exciting stuff. And yeah, let's see what it's going to lead to. It's very exciting with the Money in the Bank in the future as well, along with Hell in a Cell. Let's just do the last couple of chats, if you don't mind, Steve, for about 5 minutes, if that's okay. And we'll wrap up the stream. Now, I wanted to get this up here from Russell Red because he had it up a little while ago. He said that the good 6-man tag also to Steve's. Do you want to see Gunther face? Who do you want to see Gunther face at Clash at the Castle? And do you like Ludwig as a talker? Maybe we could have Gunther versus Sheamus. Now, that's definitely one I did in my fantasy booking video, Russell. Recommend you to go and check that out at some point if you have the opportunity to. That was the match I picked for that one. So what would your be?
I would love to see Gunther in a match at Clash at the Castle, because hopefully if I can get tickets to it and go, I'd love to see Walter wrestle. I've never had the privilege to see him wrestle live, so I think that'd be great. It would be... Sheamus is actually a pretty good shout, because obviously with him being from the UK, from Ireland, essentially, he'd have a real big face pop, Sheamus, in the Welsh crowd or in the UK crowd over here. But yeah, that would be quite good. As for Ludwig, I'm all up for Ludwig. I think Marcel Bartel, Ludwig Kaiser, I think he's a great mouthpiece, and I'm really looking forward to what they can do. They're booking Gunther right for me in the minute. They're putting him in squash matches. He's beating people in 2-3 minutes. He's chopping people left, right, and center. I just want more. My only issue is they changed his coat from black to red. I mean, as an aesthetic wise, he looked better in the black, but that's just me being picky, I suppose.
I'm actually okay with the Reds, believe it or not. I've not been too bad with it. But I was saying that I actually agree. Ludwig is a fine talker as well. The only other match I pick, if it wasn't Sheamus, of course, the draft could happen after SummerSlam. It's expected earlier this year. Finn Balor would be my other shout. I think that would be a match we was expecting. I believe it was a takeover Dublin before that was pulled, before the pandemic. So we never got that in the end. So that's certainly been like something that could be as an alternative.
Yeah.
Russell also went on to say that also this, if I was WWE, I would have Roman beat Riddle, and then it would have Riddle feud with Roman, because Roman didn't forget what Riddle said, that Riddle was going to take over Raw, then Roman. So Roman versus Riddle feud is something that Russell would like to see. Is it something you'd like to see?
Yeah, I suppose it can be interesting. Riddle is a good wrestler. I'm always a fan of seeing Roman come up against people that he doesn't know how to wrestle. Like if they're a different wrestling style, Roman's character work in ring is always entertaining to watch, because he has to try and work around how he has to beat this unique dynamic that he either doesn't come up against too often, or he's never been up against before. So yes, it'd be very entertaining to watch. Just fortunately for me, it end up with Roman destroying Riddle. That's all.
No one's beating Roman at the minute. But an idea that Martin's had for us here: triple threat match: Roman Reigns, Nakamura, and McIntyre at Hell in a Cell. A way to drag out the one-on-one match. Perhaps Nakamura could take the fall.
I don't know, because it depends on how. Again, this is all down to WWE and their story booking, because if you watch SmackDown, Nakamura's returned. Sami Zayn's being a little snake in the background, and he's dobbing him out and all this kind of stuff. I don't know if they're planning on leading more towards a Seth Nakamura feud rather than Nakamura Reigns. I'd be a fan of it, but I just think Nakamura, I think from a physicality point of view, it just wouldn't make sense for me. Like the fact he has to go up against two guys that are much, much taller than him, much, much bigger than him, much, much stronger than him. I just think he'd be in there purely to take a pinfall in that match.
He definitely would be. That's the only thing of it. It would be predictable, but I actually don't mind the idea, because it would carry it over. So if they can't do the 6-man in the cell, that's definitely a shout I wouldn't mind seeing, certainly. Russell also says that people say Cody turned heel when he pulled the tights. It was actually a tribute to Dusty Rhodes, that one. That's what happened. He actually said that in an interview after the show. So it's more outsmarting Seth, who tried it first. So I don't think he's turned heel, but certainly Cody can be quite interesting when he's on the edge of a heel turn. People seem to like that idea in AEW, and I don't think he'll turn heel in WWE, certainly not for the first year. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely not. Not until he wins that title. He's going to be a face all the way. His crowning moment is going to be winning that WWE Championship.
Absolutely, indeed. There, we're going to go through as many comments as we can then for the next 5 minutes, and then we will close off the stream. So we'll try and go through them as quick as we can. Chris, thank you for checking out the stream. Says Ali and AJ and Finn again, and Rhea versus Edge, Ciampa, Dawn, and Rhea. Finn was meant to live there at Hell in a Cell there. I think that'd be an awesome thing if they could do that. Obviously, if they were to add Ciampa and Ali, we mentioned about the 6th person, but the intergender idea seems like a fun idea.
Yeah, I think it's something they've never done before. And if you took this over to Survivor Series and you had an intergender Survivor Series style match, I think this could actually be really good. And like I said, we get Liv versus Rhea, like that dynamic where obviously if one of the women is tagged in, the other one has to come in. It's just a unique narrative to a Survivor Series match that I don't think I've personally seen before.
No, definitely. I think it would be really fun to see how it's going to play out. Martin Correa also says that it would want AJ and Edge in the singles match, but I would enjoy AJ and Finn versus Priest and Edge in a tornado tag inside the cell. Bullet Club idea there for life. Well, you said you wanted to see Finn and AJ as a team. It looks like we probably could get that idea now, probably even as soon as tonight on Raw. Would you like to see it?
I would love nothing more than to see AJ and Finn go on to form a tag team and go on and win tag team gold. I would love nothing more. It is a crime that we've only seen these two wrestle each other once in WWE since they've been together in the same company.
Absolutely, indeed. Chris says that Mr. and Mrs. Miz TV show returning in June. Will you be watching it? I certainly will not be. I've not watched any of them.
No, it's not. That whole fake reality TV thing is just not for me, unfortunately.
No. Got Martin Correa.
There we go.
Oh, I'm back here again now. Martin says, if Gunther had a match inside Hell in a Cell, who would it be with and how would it be booked? Drew Gulak, because I'm a sadistic guy and Gulak's on my TV screen. It makes me happy.
Do you know what? For as much as I hate the fact that Gulak is being treated like just a note, like the fact he's having to do auditions and stuff. The fact that he's on my TV, I think, is just a massive plus. And like I see a lot of comments with people saying Drew Gulak's rubbish and stuff like this. I don't think people really know how good of a wrestler Drew Gulak is. And I think if you had him as a massive underdog versus Gunther in a Hell in a Cell, that's a mad match, and that would be amazing to watch.
Certainly would be indeed. Yeah, we'll have to see how it will go down. Jack Haynes as well says, since Charlotte's written off TB Tamura to Andrade, how would you book Charlotte's return? Maybe the Royal returning, get her a new character changer, get in a stable. Interesting questions there. I wouldn't change anything with Charlotte Flair. I think she's underappreciated, but I do think she's one of the best to ever lace up a pair of boots, in my personal opinion. I think she comes back for the rematch with Ronda when she comes back. I'm sure people would probably groan about that, but I think there is one man match probably in with these two. And now they've done the I Quit match, they need to go a level up. So I don't know, perhaps last woman standing, something like that could be what they could do.
For me, they booked Charlotte. Talking to Charlotte as a general, she's amazing as her character. If you hate her, then she's doing her job perfectly well. I've always said it. If you hate her and she's a heel, then pay her more, because she's just doing a fantastic job. In ring, she's solid. She's one of the best women wrestlers in the business today, regardless of the fact that a lot of people think that she's getting there by name. She still has really good in-ring ability, still is one of the best women's wrestlers. To book her return, for me, I would have preferred to have seen her replicate what her father did, but unfortunately, she's already won a Rumble, and I don't really want to see her win another one. I would have had her done a return at the Rumble, coming at 1 or 2, Iron Woman'd it, gone all the way and won the Rumble. I think that would have been a great homage to her. I think, didn't Rick come in at number 2? I think 3. When he won the Rumble. Number 3. So if you'd have had Charlotte come in at 1 or 2 and just raise the level a bit more and say, look, just put her on a higher pedestal than her father, to have her come in at number 1 and win the Rumble, I think would have been a really good return. At some point as well, she will overtake her father for the amount of championship reigns as well. And I look forward to it. I love Charlotte Flair, and I think she's really good. They just need to, I don't know, they just need to work out the story and the promos for her, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. Indeed. They'll have to wait and see how it will go down. And I think Charlotte Flair could even return at the draft and maybe just go to a different show. That way she just has a fresh start. Maybe that could be something that people will be more in favour of as well there. Martin says, what if Gunther wins Money in the Bank, goes undefeated, cashing in at WrestleMania, beats Reigns, passes the torch as the top heel, maybe turns Reigns face? That would be kind of interesting to see, because obviously then you'd build a new heel champion, and Reigns, I suppose, face at some point would really get over with this character. They do heel to face eventually.
Yeah, I mean, he will transition at some point. I mean, the only thing I worry about with Reigns now is, obviously, you've probably seen it, but his post live show thing he did Sunday or Saturday it was, where he talked about, he said, I'm not too sure if I'll ever be back here again because of where he was. I presume it's more to do with the fact that the location they were in, they don't wrestle there many times a year. So by the time they probably get back to being there, Roman may not actually be in the company anymore, which leads me to believe that Roman's probably only got maybe 2 more years before he decides that he wants to go off to Hollywood and then be a bit of a part-timer for WWE. But it's like I said, they have to watch what they're doing with future booking now, because if Roman's planning on leaving, they need to turn him face quicker than at Mania next year if he's only planning on being around for 1 more year, for example.
Well, he signed a new contract, but it's more limited dates. So I don't know the length of that deal that's come out today, that's been released in the dirt sheets, but we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, interesting stuff. We'll have to see what's going to go down with it. But certainly that would be a match I would like to see Gunther versus. And also, Martin does go on to say on Sheamus is long overdue a World Championship match as well, which I do agree with. Kenneth says that good pay-per-view, 9 out of 10. How do you feel about Piper Niven's alliance with Nikki? Do they build an alliance with Becky Lynch for Oscar to fund alliance, and also Becky, Nikki, and Niven? I mean, it could go down that route, but I personally just think as a tag team that'd be pretty cool. And I'm hoping Nikki ASH drops the ASH and goes back to Cross, because we don't have a carrion in the company anymore. How do you feel?
Yeah, I think that's the whole point in this now, is that there is I can't remember, there was either a network exclusive or whatever it is with Dewdrop and Nikki ASH, and yeah, so hopefully she goes back to Nikki Cross, and I think it's more going to start as a tag team, and that hopefully that we're going to get a more, well, I say a more sort of more solid women's tag team division, but with WWE that just doesn't seem to exist at the minute. I mean, their longest running tag team is Casey Catanzaro and Caden Carter in NXT, and they've never won the NXT titles. So, you know, that's just always my beef with the women's tag team division. But hopefully, like I said, if they stick these two together, give them a tag team run, give Doudrop a bit more purpose in WWE now, rather, because she's been a bit sort of lackluster, I felt, since she's come in. She was obviously coming in as all Red Everything. Eve, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, she's just been a bit lackluster for me, and hopefully they can build something out of nothing with these two.
Absolutely. Last couple of questions then, because we're going well over time here, and I want to make sure that some people that have not got a comment have got one in. Wouldn't mind Gunther versus Drew Gulak at Hell in a Cell. Apparently on W's Twitter, Drew Gulak is turning into like a Sami Zayn before, with a new conspiracy gimmick or character for Gulak. That'd be quite interesting to see.
As long as he brings back his PowerPoint presentations, I'm all for it, man.
Sorry, I missed that last bit there for you, Steve. Unfortunately, I
just said, as long as he brings back his PowerPoint presentations, I'm all for it.
Oh, fair play to you, fair play to you. And he does say as well, getting beat up and doing something, getting beaten down, of course, indeed. Yeah, I can understand he's getting probably sick of that. Absolutely. It's a real shame to see there. Martin saying, thank you for asking this question. It's been a great stream. Elijah in-house as well, saying that a good view. I'm watching it back later. Also, what 4 matches do you want to see at Double or Not? Well, it's not an AEW stream, but those 2 we definitely want to see. But Steve, Elijah, I've got how I would book AEW, and also done this question and ask CW just recently, but I will ask Steve for 4 matches you want to see at Double or Nothing.
I want to see House of Black take on Death Triangle, taking on Varsity Blondes and someone else, because I think that story has been really good at the minute. I really want to see, as much as I love House of Black, I think they do need an ass kicking at some point. So it'd be nice to see someone, Death Triangle, get a win in that one. You've got Punk versus Hangman. You've got MJF versus Wardlow. That's going to be a great match. I would like to see. I want to see a crazy match like, I don't know, the JAS versus the Undisputed Elite. Why not, man? Have a 5-on-5 match. I think that would be really entertaining as well.
Sounds pretty exciting stuff indeed. But as I say, I've recently just answered what I thought the card would be. So go and check out that Ask SCW. It was a 1, 2, 4. I believe you've got a question on that one, actually. Go and check that out, because I've got the full card, not just 4. You can get about 10 matches out of me on that video. And it's going to come up for us. That's it. It's gone away for us as well as coming up for us. Says, good review, but he wants to know 5 people want to see in Judgment Day, and if you were to book it. So we've mentioned, obviously, Rhea and Damien Priest are a part of this. Would you name maybe a couple of people, and I'll name a couple of people? Gibson and Drake.
I said Gibson and Drake. Someone else, top of my head, Apollo Crews. Why not?
Apollo Crews. To add on to it, I will say T-Bar, because I do think get rid of the bar, get rid of the team, put Dijakovic back in. Think he'd be a good fit. He's a natural fit for what would be good for this group. And we mentioned Ciampa before. That's someone I want to see. It's someone in the rumor mill, but I think he would be a good fit. He's got this dark character going on right now where he's just attacking Ali for no reason, no explanation. He was sort of happy babyface, happy with Ezekiel a couple of weeks ago. So I think he would be a good fit. So there's 5 names there for you, Jake, and I hope you're happy with those 5 names. But we are going to wrap up the stream there, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much to everyone that has been involved on this. We really, really do like it. I do like this comment's just come flying in just now. Joe Gacy in Judgment Day. That could be quite fun as well. Joe Gacy. But he's too much of a talker, like we said earlier. I think that's the thing that probably let him down. But it'll be interesting to see what he will be doing now. Dexter
Lumis would have been perfect for Judgment Day.
Yes, because he doesn't say a word. But do you imagine the paintings?
Exactly.
The paintings of Symphony, that would have been quite fun to see as well there. So,
it would have been perfect. Oh, man, I'm so upset now.
Yeah.
I'm going to go home and cry.
Absolutely. And also, Russell Red, thank you very much for saying this has been a good review. If you've enjoyed it, everybody, then please do us a favor. And if you could please like the video, share it with a friend, and subscribe as well. We really do appreciate it here on SCW. Drop a comment as well after the video if there's anything, especially if you're watching on delay as well, what you thought about WrestleMania Backlash. Do you agree with our thoughts? Do you disagree with anything you missed in the stream and you're watching live? Go back and check it out now. But Steve, I want to say thank you very much for coming on the stream. It's been a pleasure to have you as always.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be on here, Steve.
Absolutely, indeed. And I want, when this video goes off, if anyone could do me a favor, if they've not hit the like already, but also tell me in the comments of this video, Do you want me to do a live Q&A this week? I've not done them for a while. Let me know if you want to see a live Q&A. That's the job I've got for you at the end of this stream. But thanks everyone for watching anyway. See you very soon. Hope you enjoyed WrestleMania Backlash. And yeah, we'll be back for more videos very soon here on SCW. Take care. Have yourselves a great day.